The San Francisco Giants had the last great MLB dynasty, winning 3 World Series in just 7 seasons. Madison Bumgarner had one of the greatest postseason runs in baseball history, winning 2014 NLCS and World Series MVP, including one of the most impressive relief appearances in recent memory, pitching 5 scoreless to clinch Game 7 on the road. He's fallen off a little since, but he'll always be remembered for that run. Among moments like these. The Yankees' whole franchise is a dynasty, but the late 90s, early 2000s teams made it to 6 World Series in 8 years. Meanwhile, my team has made it once. Ever. Over in Houston, they're in the middle of making their own dynasty. 4 World Series appearances since that infamous 2017 year, finishing off 2. Some will never give them credit for it, but at the end of the day, there's no official asterisk. A dynasty doesn't have a true definition with X amount of titles. As long as you dominate the sport for an extended period of time, most will call you a dynasty. Brady and the Patriots, Russell and the Celtics, Jordan and the Bulls. We can name plenty, but being a dynasty isn't easy. The Chicago Cubs made a team good enough to be a dynasty, full of young talent that had the chance to be successful for years, but it collapsed just as quickly as it was built. The Atlanta Braves continue to win and put themselves in place to win the East Division yet again and possibly more. The biggest problem with teams who have enough young talent is keeping all, if even multiple players. The Braves have figured out how to solve this problem even as a bigger market. They've set the path for the small market team. All of their young talent is locked down for the foreseeable future because they signed everyone early before they were superstars. Ronald Acuna Jr., who is already one of the favorites for NL MVP, is locked down for only $17 million a year until 2028. If a free agent, teams would go crazy to try to land him, possibly being the richest player in baseball history. Austin Riley has become one of the top power hitters in the National League, hitting 70 home runs the past 2 seasons. The most expensive his contract will get per year, only $22 million. Ozzie Albies $7 million per year, and their 2 rookies from last year, Spencer Strider, who's already one of the favorites for NL Cy Young, is signed at just $12.5 million per year on average. Michael Harris won the Rookie of the Year, and the Braves decided to give him less than $10 per year on average. While growing their own talent and signing them to cheap contracts, the Braves still went out and made a trade for a big power lefty in Matt Olson, and a year later getting Sean Murphy. 2 great players who have proven themselves year after year at the big league level. Then just like the younger guys, gave them extensions under market value. Some are calling it robbing their own players, but the players are the ones signing. Kansas City wishes they went this route. As a small market team, it's nearly impossible to keep your homegrown talent once they become all-star caliber players, and a good amount of them were when nearly half of the all-star starting lineup were Royal players. Lorenzo Cain finished top 3 in MVP voting in the Royals World Series year. The Royals never had serious extension talks with Cain and lost him to the Brewers in free agency. Eric Hosmer started out his career slugging .465, and if he were to do that in Atlanta today, he'd get a cheap deal, but instead played out all his arbitration years, leaving to San Diego in free agency. His career has gone so far downhill since that he's more known for holding up the Juan Soto deal than his on-field play. Mike Moustakas received MVP votes that season, but other than a 1-year deal where he was traded midway through the season, didn't go past his original contract. Salvador Perez and Alex Gordon, 2 defensive first players, are the only 2 notable players that made it to the end of the 2018 season, leaving not much room for a second World Series after 2015. The Cubs did almost everything right to build a dynasty, but 7 years later, the team playing in Wrigley is unrecognizable to the fans that watch them win it all. Even if it's not the team we grew up watching, we can still watch the team across our chests at our favorite ballpark. SeatGeek will let you watch baseball or any other sport, concert, or nearly anything that requires a ticket in person. With promo code BREWPACK, you can get $20 off your order. Link is on your screen and the description. Shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. The Cubs could have been known not just as a team who broke the curse of the Billy Goat, but a team who did it multiple times. The Cubs were so bad throughout the years, they were known as the lovable losers. Their losing was infamous for the curse of the Billy Goat, the Black Cat, and Steve Bartman. 1-1 was in no way a failure, but all the fans in Wrigleyville were still hoping for more. Prospects are great to give failing teams hopes of having a future superstar, but sometimes these younger guys just don't work out. Other times the scouts know what they're doing and their predictions come true. The Cubs, just like every team, are no different. Players that were supposed to end the curse never ended up being the superstar they were supposed to be. Corey Patterson was the number 2 prospect in all of baseball entering 2001. Patterson was supposed to be a 5-tool player. The speed showed up a few seasons, but with only 1 season with more than 20 home runs and a career 77 WRC+, he never lived up to his true potential. Sometimes your top prospects come from trades like after the 2011 season. Coming off a season finish in 20 games under 500, the Cubs would decide to make the first trade for the core piece of their championship team, trading their 2008 first-round pick to the Padres for a 21-year-old first baseman who just broke into the league that year, RIzzo. That year before in the draft, high school shortstop Javier Baez would fall to the Cubs 9th overall. After finishing with the second worst record in baseball, multiple contracts expiring, the Cubs knew it was time to officially rebuild. Trading long-term starter Ryan Dempster for Kyle Hendricks from the Rangers, and with another high draft pick in 2013, it was time to select another cornerstone piece for the future. Mark Appel was highly regarded as the best player available in the draft, and the Astros thought the same, taking him number 1 overall. No one knew what the Cubs were going to do with the second pick. Mock drafts having them take multiple different players. Multi-time All-Star and MVP Kris Bryant would be their selection, completing the majority of their infield. Just 4 days prior to the draft, the Cubs made a move almost just as good, giving them not just their ace, but one of the better starters in baseball for 3 straight seasons. Jake Arrieta could not be developed in Baltimore, like most pitchers back then. With no expectations, a few average veterans, and a couple prospects, 2013 would be another year that would land the Cubs a high draft pick in 2014. The top 6 of that draft had 4 players who would either not reach the majors or never even become solid backups at the major league level, and until Carlos Rodon's recent resurgence in 2021, only power-hitting lefty Kyle Schwarber would be a successful major league player, who the Cubs took 4th overall. 2014 would finally show some improvements with Javier Baez debuting. At the deadline, they would be sellers again, trading veteran pitchers Jeff Samardzija and Jason Hamill to land Addison Russell to complete their infield of the future. With a rotation of Arrieta and Hendricks, the Cubs knew they had to add another big arm. Coming off a 4th place finish with Boston and Oakland, John Lester would sign a 6-year, $155 million contract to give them a big 3. And as every team with younger players do, signed some veterans to finish off their roster, along with making Joe Maddon the highest paid manager in baseball after he left Tampa Bay. The Cubs were set. Some were bigger believers than others starting the season. One of the bigger problems with the Cubs had nothing to do with the roster, but the division they were in. Brewers and Reds were expected to be respectable, not great, but the Cardinals had some of the best odds to win it all, and the Pirates were in the better half. Throughout the entire first half and even heading into the deadline, the Cubs didn't look special. On July 28th, just 3 days before the trade deadline, they were 5 games over 500 and 11.5 games back, making them not huge buyers. A 45-19 record since their lowest point would land them with the 3rd best record in baseball, which was also good for 3rd place in their own division. Still a playoff spot, which is all they need to show they were the best team in the Central, beating the Pirates in the wild card with a complete game from Arrieta. An NLDS win over the Cardinals brought them to their first NLCS appearance since the infamous Steve Bartman game in 2003. The inexperience would finally show up, getting swept by the Mets. Cub fans couldn't have been more excited for 2016, knowing they were the favorites to finally win it all heading into the season. Without having a breakdown of the whole season, Kyle Schwarber was thought to be out for the season with a torn ACL in the 3rd game of the season. They ended the Giants dynasty with a 9th inning comeback in Game 4. Kershaw's playoff legacy took another hit, getting blown up in a must-win Game 6, sending the Cubs to their first World Series since 1945. Somehow Schwarber would return in the World Series, getting on base in 10 of his 20 plate appearances. Chicago got down 3-1 in the series, a rain delay happened, and Bryant made the play to finally end the most infamous drought in sports history. The 2016 Chicago Cubs will always be remembered, but it's what happened after that made them a failure. 2017 yet again had the Cubs as the favorite to win it all, and it was deserved. Returned almost to the exact same team except Wilson Contreras, getting his first full season behind the plate, replacing Montero and Ross from the previous year. A clear upgrade. And with Javier Baez getting his 2nd full season, the expectations were to win it all again, and anything else was a failure. The NL Central that dominated 2015 was long gone, with the Pirates never being able to get it together and the Cardinals barely finishing over 500. The Cubs were easily able to clinch the Central again. Back-to-back comeback wins in Game 4 and 5 gave the Nationals another heartbreaking playoff loss. A walk-off by Turner in a quick 0-3 series hole against the Dodgers would end their chances of being the first National League team to go back-to-back since the Phillies in '79 and '80. 1 year doesn't end the chances of dynasties, as the Giants like to show. 2018 would yet again provide the Cubs with another loaded roster, but the loss of their Cy Young the past 3 seasons would be costly. What looked like an easy 3rd straight division title started to slip away when the Brewers decided to stop losing and go on an 8-game winning streak to end the regular season, which included a Game 1 6-3 win at Wrigley Field to win the Central for the first time in 7 years. Chicago would have to play another must-win game at Wrigley, this time in the wild card against the Rockies. MVP candidate Javier Baez would tie the game in the 8th, but a Tony Wolters single in the 13th would put the Rockies on top for good, ending the Cubs season earlier than expected for the 2nd straight year. Baez and Schwarber had their big breakout years. Rizzo won another Gold Glove in the middle of his prime, and Bryant was only 26, being just 1 year from an MVP. Promising middle infielder who was looking like he'd be part of this young Cubs core, Addison Russell, was suspended in September for abuse allegations made by his ex-wife, allegations that were investigated by MLB and proven to be true. He'd return in 2019 after a 40-game suspension. Chicago made one of the bigger signings of the offseason, landing Yu Darvish. Adding him and having the same exact lineup return, the Cubs would again be one of the favorites in the National League for the 4th straight year. A 3.5-game lead in early August and staying in first until later in the month would be the peak of their season. A classic late season surge in St. Louis and a 20-7 September in Milwaukee, with the Cubs' mediocre second half, would cost them not just the Central, but a playoff spot altogether. Addison Russell would be non-tendered after the season, being the first big player from the championship team to leave. For the first time since 2016, the Cubs were not a top favorite to win the World Series. Ian Happ would show the type of player he could be in back-to-back seasons, although both shortened. 2020 had so many flukes that it's hard to put too much into all the players who struggled that year. Another division title had them in the wildcard series against the Marlins. The Cubs offense was only able to total 1 run in both games, eliminating them right away. Chicago went into 2021 with the hopes they could sneak into the playoffs, but not much more on top of that. Starting the year with a very familiar lineup, the pitching side looked like this. A bad June and even worse July left them under 500 at the All-Star break, and as the losses kept piling up, the Cubs knew they couldn't be buyers at the deadline. A tough playoff loss or series choke can and will cause heartbreak to any fan base. Your entire core being traded in a 2-day span will hurt you just as much, if not more. Just ask any Cubs fan. That trade deadline would send Kris Bryant to the Giants, Javier Baez to the Mets, and Anthony Rizzo to the Yankees, officially ending any chance the Cubs had to be a dynasty, or at this point, win a second with this team. It didn't help the fans feel any better, but these trades were great from a future point of view. Pete Crow Armstrong for half a season of Baez, PCA is now a top 20 prospect in baseball, and Kevin Alcantara for Rizzo, currently a top 80 prospect. Today, Kyle Hendricks is injured and a shell of his former self on the mound, and the last position player from that championship team signed with the Cardinals after the 2022 season. The Cubs aren't expected to do a ton this year, but they built themselves a new young roster with great prospects on the way that could break their new curse, the curse of a failed dynasty.